Hi, I'm Marcellas Reynolds, the author of Supreme Models, Iconic Black Women Who Revolutionized Fashion, and you're listening to So Booking Cool with Jewel B.
Welcome to So Booking Cool. It's Jewel B. Stay tuned for my conversation, part 1, with Marcellas Reynolds, only on So Booking Cool. Today's guest is a fashion insider and professional of more than 20 years. He's an entertainment reporter, TV host, wardrobe stylist, and the author of the new book, Supreme Models, Iconic Black Women Who Revolutionized Fashion. He is Marcellas Reynolds. Okay, first.
It is me!
Yes!
It is me! I am him! I can't believe it. When you look at my CV like that, it sounds so impressive. I'm like, who is that? Who's she talking to? Who's she talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's so fitting. And I have to say, Marcellas, first of all, congratulations on Supreme Models. Gorgeous book.
Thank you.
Yes, you're right. And so needed. And I also want to say that I love there were a lot of great things that you said during your interview on the Tamron Hall show. I love that you said that Black models should not have to go into work on set with their hair and their makeup already done, just because there are people on set who should know how to style them, but they don't. So, can you just expand on that a bit and say where the comment came from, for those who don't know?
Well, I was lucky enough to be asked to do the Tamron Hall show. She saw the book. She liked it, thank goodness. And she asked me to come on with a panel of industry insiders. So Dan Hardison, who is the godmother, Veronica Webb, who's a legend, and one of my favorite new models, Janelle Williams, who's so exciting and so beautiful and such a wonderful spirit and such a great girl, go on the Tamron Hall show. And we're talking about diversity, inclusion, and I don't know, lately I have been, and maybe it's because of the book, I've been in this sort of I've always been a model file. I've always been a fan of models. Like, they're my love. They're like, I adore them. And having been a model, I've been friends with so many of them over the years. And there's just something wonderful about a model, I don't know. I can't tell you why. And there's something particularly wonderful about, and maybe it's because I'm rooting for everybody black like Issa Rae, but there's something,
Yes.
really wonderful about a black model, you know what I mean? Because most of the time they work, they're lucky to work 75% as much as their white counterparts, and they go through a lot more than other models of other races have to go through. And one thing I've always noticed since I was a model, and I started in 95 and became a stylist in 2000 and has been a stylist ever since, is that black models are sort of always treated differently on set. There's an expectation that they have to have their own hair, they have to do their own makeup, or somehow it's going to be harder for a hair and makeup artist to do a black model. And that's untrue. If a hair and makeup artist is actually skilled, they should know how to do hair and makeup for all races, not just black women, white women, but Asian women, but Latin women. But it's particularly difficult for black women to find good hair and makeup artists on every set across the world. And that's because they're not a priority for advertisers. They're not a priority for the client. And that trickles down to the person that's actually doing them. And I can't tell you how many times over the years that I have seen a white makeup artist say to a black model, I don't know how to do your hair, or I don't know how to do, or I don't have colors for your skin, or I can't do your makeup. And that's not okay, because when that client hires that hair and makeup artist, they hire them under the assumption that that hair and makeup artist can do everyone that they choose to book to sit in their seat. But for some reason, these unskilled makeup artists think it's okay to be able to say that to a black girl. So over the years, many of my friends have done this, where they take money out their own pockets and they go in, and they're basically done when they sit in the chair. They've had their hair done the day before. They've come in and they have their base on. You know what I mean? But they don't ask that of a white, curly-haired, redhead girl. They don't ask that of an Asian girl with, with long, straight hair. They don't ask that of Latino girls. But it's kind of this unwritten rule that happens with black girls. And that shouldn't happen anymore, especially not in 2019. If you've been doing hair and makeup for 20 years, you should have to go back and re-up your skills. And so often when you're on these sets, these hair and makeup people have been doing it for 20, 30 years. And they think that the skill set that they had back in the day is somehow applicable to now. And it's not. And it needs to start at a higher level. Agents need to, when they take on talent, they need to know the skill set of their talent. And they need to tell their talent, you need to be re-upping your skills. You need to constantly be going back to cosmetology school and makeup school to learn how to stay current. But these are the things that are microaggressions that black talent have to go through every single day. And it is a microaggression. When we sit in a chair and somebody makes us feel less than wonderful and then tries to throw it back on us because of who we are, because of the color of our skin or the texture of our hair, that's not our fault. That's your fault. That's your white privilege that lets you sit in the seat of, oh, well, I can say this to her and know that there's going to be no repercussions, that this black girl will actually maybe even go home that day and I won't have to do her. And I won't have to take the extra step of learning how to do what I'm employed to do.
Wow. So it's...
Sorry, I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about this. One of the last times I actually worked with a model, it happened because I took some time off to write the book. So I took like a year off to write the book. And one of the last times before I took the year off to write the book, I worked with a model. It happened on set. And not only did that happen to the girl on set, and I had to take her into the room and sort of put her back together, that same hair and makeup person sat there and told the entire set that was made up of 2 black people, a Latin person, a gay person, and numerous other white people, sat there the whole time and talked about how they loved Donald Trump as president.
Wow.
And felt like that was okay also. After you just told one of the most beautiful black girls in Chicago, who's super successful and working all the time, who happens to be one of the most kind people I know, that you have a problem with her hair because you can't do your job properly because you are untrained and ignorant. You then go on to sit there and make everybody else tense and anxious the rest of the day by talking about Donald Trump. This is the world we live in. This is what happens every day on set. This is what Viola Davis and Gabrielle Union have spoken out about recently. 2 of the most successful actresses on the face of the earth have problems with hair and makeup people on set knowing how to do their job. There is a problem.
And as you mentioned, it seems like there's not pressure put on them to get trained properly and to get better training. And then also it sounds like there's diversity lacking within the staff on these sets. Like there's not black women on the set of these photo shoots and everything who can also do our hair, models who look like us.
Well, here's the thing I've always noticed. It was something that I don't want to bash fashion because fashion is wonderful. It's one of the most accepting places in the world. But then when you start talking about it on a corporate level, when you start talking about money, then you get into this like, well, we're appealing to a white customer base, so we need to use more white models. That's always been the excuse. Or there was always the excuse that black models on covers don't sell magazines. But that's ridiculous because what we know, look at the first time that Beverly Johnson was on the cover of American Vogue. It became the highest selling Vogue to date. Then look at the time that the second black woman was on the cover of American Vogue. That was Peggy Dillard. And that issue became the highest selling Vogue to date. Look at the all-black Italian Vogue, which they couldn't keep in stores and sold out. I think it got like at least 2 reprints. That became the highest selling issue of Italian Vogue to date. You would think that from that moment, there would have been like black issues all the time, or maybe they would have like come out with a black Vogue, but they didn't. It went back to normal the next month. So that whole paradigm of black women, black models don't sell magazines, that's a myth.
Right.
But what we need to talk about instead of diversity and inclusion, because diversity has become this weird buzzword that's actually been bastardized and people just sort of ignore. Now we need to talk about what Beth Ann Hardison and I talk about all the time. We need to talk about integration.
Yes, let's talk about it. Yeah.
So on the Tamron Hall show, we talked about Gucci and the blackface sweater. We talked about Katy Perry and the blackface shoe. We talked about H&M putting the T-shirt on the little black boy that said the coolest monkey in the jungle. So Beth Ann's take on it was, if she had been in the room at Gucci, she wouldn't have seen that the Gucci sweater was racist, because whatever her frame of mind is, I would have seen that immediately. And I don't want to disagree with my angel Beth Ann, because she is everything to me and she's everything to fashion. But to me, there are certain things you stay away from. So they could have done that sweater in every single other coloration known to mankind. They could have even done it with black and put white lips on it, and it would have not been seen as that. But somebody in that room should have been of color, because they would have said immediately, you know what? This sweater could appear to a segment of the world's population as racist, and here's why. And then there would have been a teaching moment where we were taught, where that room was taught about slavery and Jim Crow and sort of Mammy and Sambo and all these negative connotations. And then that sweater and that coloration would have been taken out, because Rihanna wore the same sweater before that kerfluffle in a different coloration. And the same thing. And so that's why we need more people of color on every level in fashion, because we need somebody there that's like more maybe sensitive to it in ways that other people aren't. You know what I mean? Like, if I had been the stylist on set at H&M and I saw that little black boy come out in a T-shirt that said coolest monkey in the jungle, I would have been like, we can't put that T-shirt on him. And then if somebody asked why, then I would have taken the time to explain to them, you know, again, the American, the racism that stems from slavery, that stems from Jim Crow, that stems from us being told that we look like monkeys, that stems from people thinking we were no more than animals when we first arrived in this continent. You know? So we need more people of color. And I'm not just saying it has to be black people. We need more people of color. We need more people that are young. We need more people that are educated. Because you can be white and you can be woke. You know what I mean? But we need more people. We need integration. We, like Cameron said, when people of all races are at the table, it's for a great meal. And that's the truth. If somebody is in those rooms, because Gucci is not a racist company. I don't believe that. And I think that that's what Beth Ann was trying to say. She knows the people at Gucci. They've got initiatives set up. They've worked with Dapper Dan. Every time they're trying to be on the right side of history. But until you really have integration, you're going to constantly be catching up. You're going to make a mistake, and then you're going to catch up. And then black people are going to be pissed off because they're going to be like, don't you know already?
Yes. So, right. So like with the integration and more people needing to be in the industry and a part of the industry at various levels, do you ever think, Marcellas, that there are situations where there might be a person who is someone of color or younger, educated, like whatever, that might seem like it's a rare case for the industry? Maybe they don't want to speak up for whatever reason.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I have seen things working as a model and as a stylist, and I have not spoken up. When that thing happened to that girl, to the last model, one of the last models I worked with, when the hair and makeup person was like, I don't know how to do her hair.
Right.
I didn't leave the set, and I didn't immediately go to the art director or to the team that hired me. And I considered myself friends with them, and it was a very good client of mine. Because so often when you're the person of color, you say something, you are the person that takes the hit. You're the agitator. And so at that time, I had to worry about my money. So my job was to put the model back together because it was the two of us in the dressing room, and I had to reassure her that this was not her fault, that that person was an idiot, that she was wonderful, that she was kind, and she was beautiful, and this is what she was born to do, and she had the skill set and the beauty and the physicality to do it. And I had to work to put her back together, to get her out so that we could both do our job. But I didn't feel confident enough that I could then take my concerns about that individual to the bosses. However, when that individual went on and on about Donald Trump and made not just my set, but all the sets around us uncomfortable, I went to the powers that be and I said to them, this is what happened on set today, and this is what she did. And if you need to talk to other people, these people witnessed it. We all talked about it, and we decided that we should come to you. And by we, I meant me. But if you need, backup, several white employees saw it and were uncomfortable. So I didn't couch it under this woman doesn't know how to do hair and makeup in 2019 for a black woman. I couched it under you're not supposed to be talking about politics during work hours. Because I thought that maybe that would be more palpable to my boss than me going, how dare this white woman not know how to do this black woman's hair? She doesn't know how to do her job correctly.
That's so honest.
So I think, but so many times working while black, you feel like you are now the exemplar for everybody around you, and then you feel like all eyes are on you, and then so if you do something, if you mess up, it's 10 times worse. If you say something, it's 10 times worse. And I had this conversation recently, and forgive me if I'm rambling, but I had a client that was asking for the moon, but she wasn't paying for it. So I said to the client, listen, I'm willing to take a phone call on my day off and talk you through this process. Perhaps you've never done this before, and I'll explain it to you. And I said it and I said it via text, but it was in a very nice way. And then the client came back and she was like, well, I don't need to be insulted, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it appears that and I said, I apologize. And I was like, it appears that we're not on the same page, and it appears that this isn't a good match. So I suggest you find another site. Because I can do that shit because I've fought, for 20 years to get to this point where I can tell somebody to fuck off if I don't want to work for them. Right. So my agent, but I did it in the best possible way, in the nicest way possible. So my agent comes back to me and she's like, wait, what happened? And I sent her the text exchange. And then she says, oh, you can never talk to a client like that. Your text had a tone. I read it twice. And I said to my agent, and don't get this twisted. If you're my agent, you work for me. You are mine. I employ you. So you don't get to admonish me even if I had said something nasty to that woman, even if I had told her to go, whatever. You work for me. You're an advocate for me. You follow my lead. But I took that time to explain to my agent, I said, you cannot say to a black gay man in 2019 that they had a tone. And then she was like, what do you mean? And I said, I'm right in this situation. But as a black man and as a gay man, every word that comes from my mouth, I have to rethink and replay over 100 times before I speak it. Every text that I send, every letter I type, I have to rework because I have to worry about how it's going to land on the receiver's desk or in the receiver's mind. And so by you telling a black person, even though that black person is right, that they had a tone, what you're actually saying to that black person is, even though they're right, they're still somehow wrong. It's the same as when a woman asserts her power and a man goes to her, well, you don't have to be a bitch about it. Or it's the same as when a gay man asserts his power and they're like, calm down, queen. It's like, no, I am telling you what's right, and I'm telling you what to expect, and I'm telling you what works for me, and you in turn are coming up with something to put me in my place. And that's not going to work. That's not fair. If a white man had said exactly the same thing that I said in the exact same tone, you wouldn't have sent him an email or a text or anything that said he had a tone. You would have just accepted it as it was the truth, and you would have moved on.
How do you manage that when you come across these types of frustrations and everything?
You know, I found out I had a lunch with some millennials, I guess, not too long ago. One of the girls in the book and a couple of her relatives and a very good friend of mine, and they talked about code switching. And it was something I had never heard, but it's this weird thing where it's like you are always yourself, but with different interactions with different people, you sort of put on a different character. So if you're working in an all-white environment, you might be like a little more like sort of professional and choose your words a little differently than you would if you were like hanging out with your black friend. And if you're black and you're gay and you're hanging out with your gay friends, you might be a little gayer than you normally are. You know what I mean? And so I think that black people are so used to every single day throughout their day after day, week after week, month after week, year after year of code switching that it's almost second nature to us, unfortunately. You know what I mean? So I don't know how I manage it. I just feel like it's part and parcel of being black, or part and parcel of being gay, part and parcel of being who I am, to have to constantly, slip in and out of these things that make it easier for people to deal with me because of their perception. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. By the way, would you like to be called Mr. Reynolds or Mr. Marcellas or just Marcellas? Like, do you have...
I'm just Marcellas. Like, I'm just Marcellas. My friends call me M, and I'm just Marcellas. So.
Okay, yeah.
You can't break Marcellas up, though. My mother gave me one of those, like, crazy, beautiful names, and when I was little, she would be like, what did you call him? Like, if you called me Mark. She was like, excuse me, that's not his name. His name is Marcellas. Like, he was very or like not breaking that up. So.
It's so unique and it's unforgettable too, like Marcellas.
Oh, that's really sweet. Well, it made my grandmother crazy, actually.
Really? Why?
My mother named me oh my God. My mother names me Marcellus, and literally my grandmother took her ability to name her kids away. So the next brother was Anthony, and the brother after that was Daniel. It was funny. You're not messing up any more of my grandkids.
Oh my God.
And like, I got this moment on.
And it was, so you also, there's that, and your grandmother, you loved her fashion, like your mom and your grandmother, they were just like idols in your eyes, like beauty, fashion. So that's where it began for you, like your love of fashion?
That's where my love of everything came from. I never met my father. My mother was a single mother. But we lived in the same building with my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather. My mother was young when she had me, so we sort of grew up together. My mother was like the pretty girl in the neighborhood, so she had a little bit of pretty girl syndrome. And I think, and my grandmother was like pretty also, so my grandmother had a little bit of pretty girl syndrome also, but my grandmother was like kind of, had come through, grandmother had come through like, segregation and living in the South, so she was a little bit, more protective and a little more hands-on than my mother was. And my mother was the last of like 7 kids, so she was babied and she was sort of coddled. And so, but what's great about my mother was that at a certain point she realized that wasn't working for her. And she like pulled it together. She went back to school, got her degree, became a nurse, then went back to school again, became an orthopedic tech, learned how to drive, and really became an example of like what an education and what discipline could do for you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So and not resting on your looks and not waiting for somebody else to take care of you and doing what you needed to do for yourself. But they were the queens. Like in my house, my grandmother came through that school where you wore gloves. You know what I mean? And you dressed for church on Sunday, and your hat and your shoes and your gloves matched. And my grandmother, when she left the house, her wig was on, and her wig was on point. Her makeup was on, her lipstick was on. Bernice did not play. She was sleeping on anybody. She had her outfit. I learned how to shop with my grandmother. My grandmother would be at like Bonwood Teller and I Magnet and Marshall Fields. And she knew exactly what she wanted to look like, and she spent her money wisely. And my mother was a little more like a woman of her time. So she was more like, sort of bell-bottom jeans and, like a t-shirt, and some days she would have her hair afroed out, and then it would be like blonde, and it would be afroed out. And then other days it would be, like super straight, bone straight with a new perm, and she would have it cut like a blunt bob, and she would have bangs, and she would put like Chinese combs in it. She was that girl that went to the beauty salon like every Friday, and she came home and she was like, ta-da! And we were like, wow! Well, maybe my brothers were, but I was like, wow! Are those chopsticks?
Right, yeah. Because in the book you mentioned like how she looked after work and stuff.
Oh yeah,
fab.
Friday, she'd get that check and she'd go to the hair salon and she'd come home Friday night, which I never understood. Like, why go Friday night? Because then you have to sleep on it. Like go Monday morning or something. Like I don't know, but she would come home Friday night, her hair would be laid, and you never knew what was coming through that door. And then she would dress for what her haircut was. So she'd have on like a little Asian inspired like number. If she had her bangs or if she had her afro going, she'd have on her bell bottom jeans. And a shirt that said "What's up" or "Right on" or something. She was amazing. Like Clarice was amazing. I watched all that. I soaked that up. I soaked up all of that wonderfulness. I soaked up watching them get dressed. I mean, it's your mama. My mother would be like, "Come here and help me with my bra." She'd be like, "Come here, like, let this dress up." You know what I mean? And so you got to see it sort of firsthand, the whole process. And I loved it. I loved it. There's like theater to getting dressed. There was theater to choosing their outfits. And I loved seeing that firsthand. I loved when my mother had like an interview or was going to a party. And it was like the whole thing about like what she was going to wear or what that outfit communicated. I learned that at these women's meets.
What's your first job? Because I understand that was at a high-end women's boutique, and you were 16. So I wanted to know, like, was that a deliberate choice to get a job that involved fashion and clothing, or did it find you?
And that was part 1 of my conversation with Marcellas Reynolds. It was so great talking with him, and I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the interview. Make sure that you stay tuned for part 2, only on So Booking Cool.